Welcome to Word Analogy Questions Part 1. In this video, we'll be delving into word analogy questions' most common formats and tips on answering them, including how to identify their relationships. Let's get right into it. Word analogy questions are almost always testing the same skill: your ability to identify the relationship between two words and then apply that same relationship somewhere else. Before we get into strategies and common traps, we'll look at the two formats you'll see most often. The first format is what we'll call an incomplete second pair. In this format, you're given a complete pair of words, followed by the first word of a second pair. Your task is to figure out which word completes that second pair based on the relationship established in the first. For example, cat is to kitten as dog is to... When you see a question like this, the first thing you should do is ignore the answer choices for a moment and focus only on the first pair, cat and kitten. Ask yourself, how are these two words related? A cat is the parent, and a kitten is the offspring. So the relationship here is parent to offspring. Once you've identified that relationship, you can apply it to the second pair. If dog is the parent, what would the offspring be? Now you can take a look at the choices: puppy, calf, foal, and cub. Only puppy fits the same relationship. A dog is the parent of a puppy, just like a cat is the parent of a kitten. Although all of these animals are baby animals, just like a kitten, only puppy matches the specific relationship of parent to offspring. So dog is to puppy completes the analogy correctly. The second common format looks a little different. We'll refer to it as entire pair selection. In this format, you're only given the first pair of words. Instead of completing a second pair, you're asked to choose an entirely new pair from the answer choices. Your goal is to find the pair that shows the exact same relationship as the original. For example, leaf is to tree. Again, you start the same way, by identifying the relationship in the given pair before even looking at the choices. A leaf is part of a tree, so the relationship here is part to a whole, but more specifically, A grows on B. With this in mind, we can now look at the answer choices. Trunk is to forest, root is to soil, petal is to flower, and pebble is to rock. Only one of these shows the correct part-to-whole relationship. A petal is part of a flower, just like a leaf is part of a tree, but even more specifically, a petal grows on a flower, just like a leaf grows on a tree. While the other choices may also be considered a part of a whole, none of them can be considered as something that grows on another. A trunk doesn't grow on a forest, it grows in a forest. A root doesn't grow on soil, it grows in soil. And a pebble doesn't grow at all, it's simply a smaller component of a rock. So the correct answer is petal is to flower. The important thing to notice here is that even though these two formats look different on the surface, they're testing the same underlying skill. In both cases, your job is to identify the relationship first, and then make sure that same relationship is carried over correctly into the second pair. So how exactly do we identify the relationship correctly? Step 1 is, before even taking a look at the options, break down the relationship in the given pair. Ask yourself, how exactly are these two words related? We'll go over a number of possible relationships in this video. Your job isn't to memorize this list, but to train your brain to ask, what is this relationship specifically? There are a number of common relationship types that appear frequently on tests. We'll go through 13 types that you may come across when taking a test. Synonyms. In this relationship, the two words share the same meaning or very similar meanings. For example, large is to big, happy is to joyful, or candid is to honest. Here, the words can often be substituted for one another without changing the meaning of the sentence very much. Antonyms. In an antonym relationship, the words have opposite meanings. For example, hot is to cold, ascend is to descend, timid is to bold. These words represent opposing ends of the same idea, not just unrelated differences. Cause and effect. In this relationship, one word represents an event or action that leads directly to the other. For example, rain is to flood, drought is to famine, or overworking is to burnout. The key here is direction. The cause leads to the effect, not the other way around. This relationship only works one way, so always check that the first word clearly leads to the second, and not vice versa. Part to a whole. In a part-to-whole relationship, the first word is a component or a piece of the second word. For example, chapter is to book, finger is to hand, or petal is to flower. The second item is made up of the first. This relationship is about composition, not location or proximity. If the first word is not literally a component of the second, then it's not a part-to-whole relationship. Function. In a function relationship, the first word is an object and the second word describes what that object is used to do. For example, pen is to write, needle is to sew, or scale is to weigh. A useful way to think about this relationship is to ask what's the object's primary purpose. The second word should describe what the object is meant to do, not what happens to it or anything else. Degree. In this relationship, both words describe the same concept but at different levels of intensity or size. For example, tired is to exhausted, chilly is to frigid, or big is to huge. Here, degree doesn't refer to temperature or measurement units. It refers to how strong, intense, or extreme something is along a scale. Both words describe the same idea. The difference is only how strong or intense that idea is. Worker and workplace. In this relationship, an individual is paired with the location where they typically perform their job. For example, cook is to kitchen, teacher is to school, and surgeon is to hospital. The second word refers to the professional setting associated with the first. This is about location, not the tools used or the product created. Worker and tool. This relationship pairs a professional with the primary instrument they use to perform their work. For example, carpenter is to saw, photographer is to camera, and sculptor is to chisel. Be careful not to confuse this with workplace. The second word must be a tool, not a location. If the second word isn't something the worker physically uses, it doesn't fit this category. Worker and product. Here, the individual is paired with the item they create through their labor. For example, baker is to bread, poet is to sonnet, or potter is to vase. This relationship focuses on what the worker produces. The second word should be the end result of the worker's labor, not the process or the tool. Item and category. In this relationship, a specific object is identified as a member of a broader group. For example, apple is to fruit, violin is to instrument, or oxygen is to gas. A helpful check is whether you can naturally say, a blank is a type of blank, or simply, blank is a type of blank. For example, an apple is a type of fruit. If that sentence doesn't sound natural, the relationship is probably not category-based. Object and characteristic. This relationship pairs an object with a defining quality or trait. For example, diamond is to hard, fire is to hot, or glass is to transparent. The characteristic should describe what the object is known for, not something temporary. Ensure that this trait defines the object in general and not just in a specific situation. Symbol and meaning. In this relationship, an object or sign represents an abstract idea. For example, dove is to peace, skull is to danger, or rose is to love. These relationships are based on convention or symbolism rather than physical properties. The connection here is cultural or symbolic, not literal. And finally, noun and collective. In this relationship, a single entity is paired with the word used to describe a group of those entities. For example, lion is to pride, ship is to fleet, or whale is to pod. The second word refers specifically to a collection of the first. And with that, we've wrapped up our review of word analogy questions part 1. We've gone over their most common formats, tips on answering them, and delved into how to identify their relationships. Make sure to catch the next video where we discuss what a bridge sentence is and how to build one. Until then, keep practicing.